This is Sabrina Campbell, and I'm here with Blanco Bleu on the beautiful Sunset Boulevard. We are getting ready to interview Judith Hill from The Voice. She's going to tell us a little bit about the elimination and how she felt afterwards and some of the things she's working on currently. So stay tuned and take a peek. So first question, I'm loving the hair, loving the style. You're very exotic looking. Tell us a little bit about your family and where you're from.
Well, my mom's from Tokyo, Japan, and my dad's from California. Well, my dad's family were from Mobile, Alabama, but born and raised in California. And so yeah, I'm half black and half Japanese.
So tell us about how your family's background has helped you to become the person that you're today.
Well, my parents have been so instrumental in me, and they've been so supportive. And growing up, I was blessed to be around so many different kinds of people because my parents are both musicians, and so lots of really cool musician friends and people from different parts of the world. So we lived in a very diverse community of artistic people and creative people, and I think that definitely influenced me musically and also just me as a person and how I love the world and love to travel and things like that.
So why singing? Why not any other genre of the arts?
You know, I don't know. I think the moment I remember, since I remember from day one, I love to sing. I was something that it was something I was born to do. And my mom, she heard me singing when I was like in the car one day in the back seat, like going on my way to preschool, and she said that she thought I sounded really good, and so they became like my cheerleaders and started pushing me towards singing, and eventually I started to love it on my own and wanted to do it.
Where do you think you get that soul from? I mean, I've heard your singing, and it is amazing. You know, when you get the chills up your spine when you hear someone singing, like that's how I feel when I hear you. Where do you get that soul from?
Well, I think a lot of it comes from growing up in church and singing in the gospel choir and just being around soulful singers. The Rose Stone was a big influence for me. She's from Sly and the Family Stone. She was a choir director at my parents' church, and my mom was a keyboard player, and I was just soaking it up. I was just soaking it up from like everyone, like Tata Vega, all these incredible singers around me. And as a kid, you're like a sponge, you know, you just soak it up. And I think that soul music was always just a part of my childhood.
Okay, so let's talk about The Voice. I know that you just finished it. I know you've probably been doing a lot of interviews in regards to The Voice. So why that show? Because you know you were going to go far. I mean, you have an amazing voice. You've been there, done that. So why The Voice as opposed to the other shows?
Well, I really like The Voice because it's so driven by creativity, and it really like celebrates artists as much. Like there's not much negativity or bashing like some of the other shows you see. But also like The Voice has been so cool because it's allowed me to have a lot of creative control over what I do. Like I was able to go on The Voice and bring in my own band arrangements and do my own, like, collaborate with the wardrobe, and it was just really, like, they respected me as an artist, and so it was a great opportunity for me to just showcase me, and without, you know, too much alterations.
Right. And I think a lot of people also wondered, why did you choose Adam Levine as your coach, as opposed to someone like Usher? Because if I was on the show, I mean...
She chose Usher, right?
It's Usher.
I mean, and he turned out to be such a great coach. Like, I totally would have chosen him. I didn't know because it was his first season, and so I didn't know what he was going to be like as a coach. I was like, I just want to go with what I've seen and what I was familiar with. But he ended up being so good as a coach, and I was like, man, like he's so good, and I love him like a big fan of him as well. So I mean, I was on the fence, like it could have gone any way. Like with all four of those judges, they're all like incredible. I think I chose Adam because I've seen him on the show, and he was like the pop guy, and he just seemed like really like edgy and cool, and I thought I'm gonna give it a shot, you know.
Right. So do you still keep in touch with Adam? Because he really liked you. He was very upset once you got eliminated.
Yeah, like I haven't talked to him since the whirlwind and everything, but I'm hoping that he'll reach out and we can continue like working together.
So speaking of the elimination, you know, it was a very big deal. It got a lot of publicity. You know, how do you feel in that moment, right before they announce who's going to move forward? Can you walk us through a little bit? What was your feeling on the stage?
Oh my God, it makes you sick to your stomach. Those elimination nights are so intense. It's almost like, I feel like I was in like the gladiator arena, and like because people are screaming, like the audience is screaming at you, and
right,
the names,
right.
and you're like, oh my god, I feel like I'm like a tribute, like
yeah.
the Hunger Games being like sacrificed to America or something.
Right.
So it's so dramatic, and it's like really they play it up a lot.
Yeah.
So it really like it was nerve-wracking, like kind of traumatizing experience.
Right. And then when you don't hear your name being called, what's the feeling that you get from that?
Oh, it's pretty traumatic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like disappointing, and it's almost like, you know, it's so like public too. So it's like a whirlwind of emotions, and I think that I was pretty discouraged. But then I was able to just kind of look back at it and be like, I'm glad I ended like on a high note, and it was all like positive up to that point. So it was cool. But definitely that night it was like crazy emotions, and then they make you do press right afterwards. And
yeah, and that's the last thing I want to do.
Like the last thing I want to do is talk to a million people.
Right. Yeah. Well, what gives you hope? I mean, you have people like Jennifer Hudson, and look at the things that she's achieved, and she was eliminated earlier on. So, and I think you'll be just fine. So what do you have working on right now? Because I know you're doing the 20 feet from Stardom.
Yeah.
So how was that? How was that experience?
That was incredible. That was like, so Morgan, the director, he called me up and asked if I would be interested in this documentary, and so I was like, cool. He's like, he started following me around with a camera, followed my life, like me in the studio, me on stage, and it ended up just being like this piece on me. And when he finally finished it, I was so blown away by it. It's such an incredible, amazing documentary about these women who have just like trailblazed through American history, and like the unsung heroes. You know their voices, but you don't maybe know their names.
Right.
So it's really like a beautiful piece, and I'm just honored I was a part of it.
So with all of this going on, you have The Voice going on, 20 Feet from Stardom, going on the Jay Leno show. Do you have time to sleep?
Not much sleeping is happening, but I feel like tomorrow will be my first day off since I got eliminated.
Really?
Non-stop. It was like the night of my elimination, I had to fly to New York, and back and forth to New York, and these last 2 weeks since my elimination, and I haven't had a chance to like do anything fun or just kind of relax, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Alright, so since you have some time off, do you have a certain love interest that you
Oh my gosh, I'm so single and lame right now.
Well, you hear that. She is single, not lame, but single. And so you talked a little bit about your gig with Michael Jackson. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? I mean, a lot of us would love to see him in concert, much less work on stage with him. So tell us a little bit about what you've learned while working with him.
Well, I learned so much. I mean, Michael Jackson, it's like watching the ultimate of ultimate artists ever. It's like you get front seat to like greatness, and so being on that stage every night, observing him, working with the band, working with the lighting crew and the dancers, I mean, it was like my eyes were opened, and I think I came into the experience as a singer, and I left feeling more like not what it means to be an artist.
Right.
It's the whole thing. It's everything. I mean, he puts on a show that's will blow your mind, and it's not just that his voice is so iconic. He's iconic, and so that was really inspiring to me, just to put the pieces together more and like dig into the whole thing, the whole experience.
Yeah. So would you say that this position with working with Michael Jackson, was that the turning point in your career?
Yeah, I think mentally it was, definitely. It was like, I was so inspired and lifted by that, and it was like, that was the turning point, yeah. That was where I've always wanted to be an artist, but that was where it really kind of clicked for me, and I was like, oh, I get it. That's what it means. That's what it is, I grew up in a family of musicians, and so I never really developed more of the artist, like, showmanship part as much. I was such a music girl, like constantly, which I will never regret. That's like what drives everything. But the other elements, everything else about what it means to be a star and artist, that was working for Michael.
And what would you say was the hardest decision that you've ever had to make?
Well, my first breakup was really, really tough. That was like the hardest thing I had to do, and it was like, my first boyfriend, he was such a great guy, and And I think that was something that I don't regret, because I know that I had to. It just wasn't right for me, and especially at the time. But man, heartbreak, there's nothing like heartbreak.
No,
I mean, it's like,
girl.
I mean, it's like, I still look back at that to this day, and I'm like, that was the hardest thing I ever went through, you know?
So, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I see myself definitely performing on the big stage. I see my shows being really grand, you know, eventually with choirs and like a big stage production with lights, and I really see that being like the journey of me, like touring the world with this show, and expanding on it, and the whole thing, and eventually composing music for film, and just really growing as an artist and becoming like this thing on stage. So that's my biggest dream. It's really the hard, long road being an artist, but you know, I think at the end of the day, I think I won't regret it. I don't want to look back on my life and regret, you know? Right.
Well, I think you're well on your way. And I want to thank you for interviewing with us today.
Oh, definitely.
You are wonderful, and the next time I'm sure it's going to be about America's Next Top Model. All right, and that was Judith.